Wow.
And everything goes silent.
Chris, can you...
Hello?
Hi.
Who's there?
Desert Bus for Hope is there. Who's there?
Listen, if this is another one of those creditors, I told you I've made my final payment.
Do you have video, Chris, or should we just do this just voice?
Well, I've gussied up, so I hope there's video.
There
I've
isn't yet,
got
so
my
hit your
favorite
camera.
codpiece on, my favorite wig.
You could hit your camera button.
You know what?
It'll
Here we
save
go.
the
How
video.
about this? Let me hit that button.
There we go. It's coming through.
How's
Yes.
that? Mo better? Prototype. Bobblehead.
Oh,
Actually exists.
looking fantastic, sir.
Ian, first of all, thank you for sort of roping me into this. I know we probably don't have a lot of time to sit and chit-chat because you probably have a lot of questions. There's got to be more than 5 or 7 questions
Let's
that
hope
have
so.
posted on the
There's
message board.
8.
So you probably, there's got to be more than 8, so I'm sure you've just got to start firing them at me here.
Well, they've got me driving the bus here, but first of all, actually, for those, in case I did a terrible job of introducing you, how'd you like to
No,
introduce
you did a
yourself?
marginal job. I was watching. You did a margin. I don't know how I'd introduce me either. I was the host of that one thing. I'm that one guy from that one deal. But yeah, I mean, you know, you said it. I was lucky enough to get to be the host of 1 versus 100 on Xbox Live, which, you know, hit me about the same way it hit most gamers, I think, out of left field. I didn't know really what that meant. I got a phone call one day saying, hey, would you be interested in hosting a game show? And that's sort of always been a thing that I thought I would like to do, like on TV and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I said, sure. And then sort of my agent, business partner said, you know, well, it's a video game show. And I said, all right, sounds cool. And so went through a bunch of auditions, and you know, next thing, you know, I got the game, and I didn't really know what it meant until we started figuring it out and working it out. And it just kind of, I think like you, I perhaps at first didn't take it as serious as I should, and then got into it and went, wow, there's something here. This is cool. Because like you, there was a lot of people who maybe, you know, played it casually, and diehard gamers didn't really want to like it. You know, people online were like, come on with this, a game show. And then they got hooked in because usually it was like a friend wanted to play or your girlfriend wanted to play. So the guy would deal with it and be like, all right, fine. And then they would discover how fun it was and how competitive it was. And that became the recurring thing, is people saying, I didn't want to like this at all. I wasn't into it, and I got hooked, and now I'm totally into it. Now I totally get it. So it was a really, really cool thing to be a part of.
No, it's just amazing, and the very fact that you managed to make a community out of it as well. I mean, I remember when I first popped in You Don't Know Jack a few months ago and decided to randomly look at the leaderboards. I noticed a lot of names from a lot of names in that I noticed from 1 versus 100. So
yeah, well, you know, it was sort of this great idea that I think was perhaps too big for its britches. I think what it could have become and what it would be right now, I think, would be monstrous. And I think that it was one of those great opportunities. They said, let's do this. We jumped into it. And really, it was very different from what it was initially by the time we ended it, even over after a couple of seasons. Because really, it was this game show. I would pop in live every now and again. People could win Microsoft points. And let's start there. And very quickly, because my background was in, you know, TV and in radio, I kept thinking, I saw what this was, and I went, wow, this is kind of both things coming together. It's a little bit radio, it's a little bit TV, and the gaming experience makes it legitimately interactive. You know, people are sitting there pressing the buttons, which you know, when you do TV or your radio or even what you're doing right now, you don't literally get you know, direct feedback from people, although this is different. I mean, here we are a couple years later, so you do get people writing in right now. But, you know, from my history in TV and radio, you know, you would maybe meet somebody on the street who'd say, hey, I saw that one thing you did. That's cool. And that was it. You know, we didn't have, you know, message boards and things the way we do now in the last couple of years, where it's become crazy and instantaneous, and with Twitter and all of that. So to immediately see responses and to sort of propose things, I would say to my producer, why don't we ask for emails? Do we have an email? Can we set up an email? And so by the next week, we set up an email account. And I said, let's just see what happens. If I say, email us, liveshow@xbox.com, and then all of a sudden, they would turn the screen around to the window, and I would see this inbox, and it would just start all but crashing. We'd have like 3,000 emails immediately. And it really was this kind of goosebumpy experience where I thought, wow, you know, unlike TV and radio and stuff where you have to, it really is a guesstimate. Ratings are really totally not accurate. You know, they kind of take a number and then compound it and all of that. This was legitimate. I had a ticker in front of me. I could see how many people were playing live, and it was rolling over like a car odometer. It was just going, and I'd see 10,000, 13,000. I'd keep talking for a little while. All of a sudden, I'd look over and it'd say 18,000. I'd look over and it'd say 23,000. I'd look over and say 40,000. It was really hard to not get caught up in the fact that I was really sort of able to connect like never before with people, and to know that they were there on purpose. They had logged in. They could send emails. You know, I think I upped the ante the next week and said, hey, don't just email us. You know, what does your setup look like? Who are you gaming with? I want to see you. Send me a photo. Because I realized, hey, everybody, you know, this is a couple of years, 3 years ago. So I said, a lot of you can do it on your phones now, which is now it's like obvious. But, a couple of years ago, people were just getting into cell phones and all that, and the video the way they do now. So I said, let's just see it. Let's see if people will email in photos. And the inbox went crazy. And I started to see, two guys sitting together having fun. Then I'd see somebody with a giant TV. Then I'd see a whole family. I'd see what is clearly the dad and the uncle and the mom and the kids and the dog and people playing. And it was really this, I don't know, I just sort of felt myself getting dumbstruck by the whole thing, because it really was like I had no idea. I mean, I guess you think you imagine who's playing and who's on the other end, but to get to see them was spectacular. And then to get to eventually up the ante and say, hey, why don't we have guests? Because all that was not a part of the original plan. And, I'm not trying to, spill their secrets, but there was definitely some pushback when I said, hey, why don't we have guests? Why don't we have people call in? Why don't we take phone calls? There's sort of some like, we're not sure about that and how that would, so without getting too into detail, I sort of forced that issue a little bit and said, no, we gotta have, guests. This is part of what's neat about this. We could take phone calls. I mean, we could do a contest, and I could call a winner, wherever they might be. The phone's going to pick up, and it's going to be Xbox Live calling their house. And to me, I just thought this will be such a cool moment in technology. We got to do this. And so we started doing it, and it became a regular thing. And I think they started to understand too how neat this was, to be able to actually call some of the gamers at their house. And sometimes even we'd pre-call them the way they do on radio shows, just to make sure they were there, and in a clean connection and things like that. But one of the ones that I don't think you guys ever heard it live, because I think it was before we went live, but we called a winner, and and I just hear the phone ringing, of course, and they turn up my mic, and I'll talk to whoever answers and try to say, hey, you there? Cool, stand by, we want to talk to you. And it was a mom who answered, clearly, and hello, and I said hi, and I think we usually have gamer tags, but we can usually also tell who you are. So I think I just said, hey, is Colin there? Yes. Can I ask who's calling? And I sort of had this moment of, what do I say here? And I said, Xbox Live? And she went, okay, hang on. Almost like without skipping a beat. It was fun. Hang on. Colin! Xbox Live is on the phone! Xbox Live is on the phone! What do you mean? They're on the phone! Pick up the phone! Pick up the phone! It was one of those calls, where the mom's yelling and she didn't understand. And finally it was like, hello? I said, Colin, it's Chris Cashman, 1 versus 100. Oh, Mom, hang up. What? Mom, hang up! It was so priceless. I just had like tears in my eyes, because I went, this is so great. Because people really didn't know how this worked. I didn't know how it worked, and then we took that a step further and started saying, what if we have guests, like celebrities, or from so we had Joel McHale come on right as he was getting ready to launch Community and all of that. Then we had, and then we realized, hey, we can sort of weave in pop culture with the games, and then we could have people like Cliff Bleszinski call in, and then we could have people like Felicia Day came. She flew into Seattle and came in the studio with me, and we sat there and did the game together, and it's almost like it happened so fast that I look back now and go, wow, that was, and I say this, I've said it to a lot of people, that is probably the coolest, doing that game is probably the coolest thing in show business that I'll ever do. I mean, I get to do TV and radio stuff, and I've been lucky enough to get to interview big celebrities or whatever through some of these things. But to me, I look back and I go, no, I still feel like if I had to line everything up and said you only get to pick one avenue to go down, which one of these are you going down, I would have said Xbox, because it was so spectacular what we were doing. Like I said, it was the combination of TV, radio, games, and then all of a sudden pop culture and celebrities were coming in. I could see the lights going on the bosses of Xbox going, wait a minute, we can promote our products this way. We can have game designers and game celebrities and people like Felicia Day who were sort of crossing over. And I really felt like we were having this eureka moment of, we're onto something here.
It's really quite
I get how this works.
It sounds like you're actually, oddly enough, the if I may say, old media person, dragging Xbox Live kicking and screaming into this new world of interactivity with their
I mean,
fans.
I don't want to go that far, but I mean, they certainly had this idea. They initiated it, but they did hire folks from TV essentially to steer it. My producer was a guy who came from TV, from MTV and Nickelodeon, and and then he leaned on me, and a lot of it was me and him fighting for these, TV or broadcast general entertainment portions that we wanted to bring into it. We said, okay, we're doing the game, it's live, we're doing the questions, that's great, but let's give them more. And like I said, the biggest pain to me now is just knowing what it could have become. Because again, if you ask me now, or even if you asked me back then, hold, you're on pause. You can only go one direction. Which one are you going? Are you going to follow your TV life? Are you going to follow radio? Are you going to follow that? I would have said Xbox Live, because I saw that live dashboard and what it was becoming, and I would find myself explaining it to older generations like my parents and beyond, what it was, and they didn't quite get it, because Xbox, massive, powerful brand, but people associate it as, oh, it's a video game console. But you and I know that it is so much more than a video game console. And as soon as they can somehow, whether they just make a clone of it and call it something else, the Media Cube or whatever, as soon as they can get people to realize that this, that the video game portion is just one small fraction of what Xbox Live is, it could be even a bigger monster than it is. So once I saw what was going on, I saw the potential, and all of a sudden I saw the game. We started doing commercials, and I saw, actual video commercials of me in the game. It was just sort of this mind-blowing capabilities that I thought, wow, we're just at the very beginning here. Imagine where this is going to go. So, it was an extraordinary opportunity. And like I said, the only part that makes me sad about it is the what if, where could it be right now?
Well, I know to this day I can't actually look at a Kiwi or a box of Lifestyle cookies without hearing your voice.
I appreciate that. No, I've gotten no kickbacks from the Kiwi people, by the way, which has upset me greatly. But a lot of stuff like that, the Kiwis thing, and you name it, the Age of Booty, all of these things that sort of became inside jokes on the game. Were all just totally organic moments, just things that just happened for whatever reason. That's what was sitting there. So I grabbed a Kiwi and made a joke, and then it became this thing. So it really was sort of this cool network and this cool family. And like I said, I kept meeting people that would say, I didn't want to like it or whatever, and then my girlfriend wanted to, so I would do it just because she wanted to play, or even kids who would say this was like the one thing my parents would let me play on a school night, because it was learning, but it was also a fun game, and then they would get into it, and they said it became their thing. So I was, I really honestly, and it sounds corny, but I really felt like I was living this double life, like where I got to walk around. I had this weird sense of, I'd walk around, even in the neighborhood I live in now. There's a guy just up the street who has a big Xbox Live neon sign in his living room, and I could see it when I would drive by, and I always thought, he's obviously a fan. He's obviously an Xbox Live subscriber. I thought I should just knock on his door one day and just see what happened. I never did that, but I'd see stuff like that, or I'd think, I got to sort of be anonymous, but at the same time, there I was on this game on the dashboard. One of, a few select things, and certainly the first of its kind in our world.
Yes.
And we got in the Guinness Book of World Records for getting 100,000 some, people all playing at once. We got to do these cool media events, things that are almost now in and out of my brain, because we were so chasing our tail to get this thing going. And then they'd say, hey, we're going to do a media thing. Can you come in tomorrow? Can you do a media thing? And I would stand here like this, like you guys, and I'd be looking at this camera, and they'd say, you're talking to San Francisco. It's a convention, so I would sit there talking about it. And at the same time, we're figuring it out and what it means, what it entails. But it was so cool to be a part of like I said, there's zero negative memories or no grudges or anything. I just feel bad about what it could have become if we kept going. I can only imagine.
I think there's no question that if something like, there still is a market for this somewhere, and if we were to happen again, we'd certainly like to have you back on. Have we got any questions actually from the
Yes, we do have some questions now.
Well, that's too bad because I'm out of time. Hold on.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm also doing this while driving a bus, actually. Actually, are you, before we go on here, are you aware of what we're actually doing here with the system?
I am. Well, I've been eavesdropping like a lot of people on what you guys are doing. It's pretty awesome, quite frankly. I think I sort of try to do power it out through the night kind of things a couple of times in my life, and I crumbled. My knees got weak. So the fact that you guys are doing this, and for charity and Child's Play, I'm very familiar with, because we had the guys, Gabe and Tycho, on. They came. They were in studio with me, and so I'm definitely familiar with it. And it's obviously a great cause. I've got children. I've got 2 daughters. So no, it's extraordinary what you guys are doing. That's why it was a no-brainer for me. I wasn't familiar when you first had connected with me online, and that's why I looked it up, and I thought, man, this is pretty cool. No fair. So yeah.
I'm glad to have you on board the bus here. So actually, I'll start off the questions here with one we've been throwing it to pretty much all of our guests.
No,
hey, you sit down.
You're going with this.
Yep.
I was about to answer me a question.
Okay.
So rude.
Saves me having to ask it because
I've never had so much power. This is fantastic. You can go if you got to go somewhere. It's
Okay.
fine. I just wanted to see if you would respond, and you did. That's great.
Sorry.
No,
See, now people know this is live.
it's mostly live. We've got a small delay that we can't do anything about. So, so the question is, of course, Star Trek erotic fan fiction. Which side do you stand on, pro or con?
They just wanted to hear you say that out loud, didn't they?
Serious question, though. We've
Serious question?
What
Serious
is your
question.
stance on erotic Star Trek fan fiction?
What is my stance? I would say it's a firm stance. I indicate which one. I'll leave it at that.
I think we've been dealing with Next Generation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it gets a little bit too weird.
Yeah, there hasn't been an opportunity.
But if you're looking for a specific one, I can't even say that I could mention one.
Okay.
Hey,
Let's move on to other questions.
yes.
Just before I start on the questions, there's one other thing we're asking all our guests for, and that is a random trivial fact, a piece of true knowledge that you can share with us. You don't have to have it on hand right now, but be thinking of one so that by the
Oh
end of the call, we
man,
can
I just
get
had something the other day that I cherry picked, and I thought, that's so weird that I'm going to file that away. And at some point, I'm going to bring that up and blow people's minds. I've got to dig that out. That came in the last 24 hours, so I got to try to remember why you guys are gagging.
Okay, cool. In the meantime, do you have any tips for somebody trying to get into voice acting?
Oh boy, it sounds silly, but I would say, it's corny, but like an athlete, I would just say practice, practice, practice. For whatever reason, was always wired that way when I was a kid. I still do the same thing I did when I was 10, driving around. I'd hear a commercial on the radio, and I would imagine how I would say it. I'd get done hearing the guy sell a car, and then I would sit and do it to myself, and I'd do the same dumb thing where I'd talk into my hand, and I'd kind of cup it around to my ear so that I can kind of hear myself in my own ear. And I would do either imitations of exactly what they would do to see if I could get as close as they sounded, or I would do it my own style. And I just kept doing it. And then I got a job at a radio station, just doing whatever. I knew I wanted to be on the air and all that, but I thought, get in line, just do your thing, get in line. And I had studied it in college and in school and learned the basics of it, but I knew, I needed to get in somewhere and start doing it rather than just talking and reading about it. So I got in the door at a radio station just saying, look, I'll do whatever. And they said, hey, you can help out in promotions and set up a tent at concerts. And I did. But eventually somebody gets sick and they get no pension. And they say, Cashman, get over here. Can you fill in? And I still remember my first night on the air. I was on a radio station in Seattle. I was so pumped to get the phone call, but it's so nervous because I realized I was very underprepared. I barely knew how to run the board. And I thought, geez, but it was overnight. So I thought, okay, there's probably going to be less people listening. None of my friends certainly are going to hear me screw up. So this will be okay. And I went in, the guy kind of gave me the basics, and I was sort of too nervous to admit I didn't really know what I was doing. So I kind of was, no, I get it. Yeah, everything's right there. And then, sure. And then when he left, I remember going, dude, you should have asked some more questions. You don't really know what you're doing. And he left. I faked my way through it. It sounded weird to me all night. There was kind of a weird echo, but I just thought, this is just me not knowing what I'm doing. It's fine. The morning show guy showed up, and the producer came walking in, and he said, hey, man, hey, nice to meet you. Hey, good to have you aboard. Hey, quick question. I was listening to you on the way in. Why does it sound so weird? And my heart just skipped a beat, and I went, oh, no. It wasn't just my headphones. What have I done? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, here, on the next song, just show me what you're doing. I was, okay, and I came on and did my, hey, it's Chris Cashman. Here's Bare Naked Ladies. Turned it off, and I said, cool. And he's like, well, yeah, small problem. And he grabbed the microphone in front of me and shoved it out of the way and then grabbed the microphone over here and pulled it in. He was like, you've been talking into the wrong mic all night. So there was 2 microphones, and I was doing this one, and it was this one that was, for a guest. Wow. So all night, I really was doing this thing. All night, I was introducing songs like this, and it was like an 8-hour shift.
Oh.
So, but the point being is it scared me straight to say, okay, study this stuff, pay attention. And I just started doing it. I would read scripts. There's like voice guys out there, and I bought a couple of their books because some guys were very cool, and they would have scripts in them. Because I wanted to read, like, what's a real script from, like, one of these TV channels and stuff. The imaging, the guys who do the voice imaging for a living, I always thought that was the coolest job ever. Because I was working at the radio station, and I asked to sit in one day on the imaging where they put together the, Hot 104 or whatever they say. And I wanted to know how they did that. And I went in there, and he said, we get the guy on the ISDN line. I said, what's that? And he said, it's a line that we have to his studio, and he's in New York. That was all news to me. I went, he's not here? He's in New York. They dial him up, and I loved it because I really got this goosebumpy moment because I thought, I'm just not. Sadly, I'm not. I wasn't born sounding like this, so I thought I can't do it. I've just got a normal voice. But then I hear the guy come on the line, and it literally was this. You can just hear him. He's rustling paper, and he's like, "Hey, man, got the script here. Where do you want to start, man?" He had this big, thick East Coast accent, and sniffling and wrestling paper around. And I thought, this can't be the guy. Like, is this the guy setting up the microphone for the guy? And then he says, why don't you just start off with the birthday party? He's like, all right, man. Here we go. It's Kent and Ellen's birthday. And he just turned it on. And I just literally got goosebumps. And the hair stood up on my neck. And I went, he's a faker. Wait a minute. They're all fakers.
Nobody sounds like that all the time.
So, it literally was that moment that I needed to see is, okay, so a lot of these guys don't sound like that. That's just a voice they put on. They're voice acting for the most part. And that was sort of my beginning. That was about 2000 for me. And then from 2000 until, 2006, 7, it's like that's all I was doing is thinking about it and voicing stuff. And, I'd listen back a year later and go, oh, that was awful. And then, you just would get better. You just keep practicing and figuring out what kind of voices you can do, what kind of voices you can't do. And just like any, sport or, playing an instrument, it was just practice, just doing and making demos. And the beauty of it now is with the internet, with podcasts, there's so many more ways for you to get your work actually heard than there used to be. You could fight the battle of that now it's so much easier for guys to get work because, the internet, they can do it from wherever they are. I do voice stuff here from home in my man cave, which is not to be confused with my garage here. But because I can, I just, I have a microphone, I plug it into the laptop, I do my thing. And, with podcasts and all of those things, now there's more and more opportunities to do your thing and get your voice heard. Maybe even, that's what I started doing. I basically was saying, hey, I'm really into this imaging thing. Let me make you an open, and so there's some podcasts out there that I produce their open. I'm the voice guy on it and all of that. So, the very long answer is just practice and just do it and start laying down your voice and recording it and playing it back.
All right.
Make it happen.
What's the weirdest fan meeting moment you've had?
Well, I wouldn't say that there haven't been any uncomfortable meeting moments, but I've had several really awesome ones, and that's sort of the silver lining to the game getting canceled, because they did give me a little bit of a heads up that it was happening. Not a bunch, but before it technically hit the web that it was going away, they let me know. So I was able to react, and that's why I put a video on YouTube of me reacting. But the beauty of it going away is that we got so much. I've never seen, because the internet can be negative and mean and icky, but we got so much love for the game, and that I've never seen anything like it. I couldn't believe how much press we got for it going away, and that people were bummed out, both professionally and just people typing in. And I would see 148 comments, and which I never do, but I would actually look just to see, what do people want to say? And it was 99.9% bummed out, people just saying really nice things. And it was like enough of a pat on the back to where I was okay with it. I went, well, at least I know that it wasn't because it stunk and nobody liked it, nobody played. It's just one of those things where somebody made a decision and this and that. I loved the fact that I felt like we were sort of going out while people still wanted it. You know what I mean? So I always wondered what it would be like if I met somebody that didn't connect the dots and then did and said, hey, wait, you're on that game. So I had a couple of moments to where I think before it was ever canceled, I was doing a job in San Diego, California. So I was doing like a convention, and it was totally unrelated. I was just like talent for hire, and I was just a guy who was going there and going to kind of talk and entertain people. And they had one of the guys standing at the airport with the sign, Chris Cashman, which is the first time that's ever happened in my life. But it was funny because I see the guy, and I kind of go walking over. I'm like, oh, okay. And this girl cuts me off, and she goes, are you Chris Cashman? What's that? She goes, you're Chris Cashman. I go, yeah. She goes, I saw the guy with the sign, and I had to stand here and wait and see if it was you. I'm a huge fan of 1 versus 100. And it was just sort of the first moment where it happened, and there I was, you know, not in my hometown, not in my neighborhood. I was just like thinking, wow, this is crazy. And it was this really nice girl from New York, and she was there in San Diego because her husband is in the military, and that's where he was stationed. And she says, he and I play whenever he's home. We play it together. He's not going to believe that I met you. This is so crazy. Would you call him? It was one of those, can I get him on the phone? Could you call him? Could you leave a voicemail for him? You know, and it was sort of the first time that it happened, and it was so cool. And then a couple of times since then where I was in New York. I do some work now for MSN. I host a TV entrepreneurial show for MSN called News on Main. It's basically folks who wanted to start their own business and how they did it and how they're making it work. So it's stuff that, you know, folks like us can relate to who don't have a real job, who would rather like work for themselves or create something cool. So doing that show, I went to New York to feature some people, and we met a guy who works there for NBC. He's one of the online content guys for NBC. Somebody I knew him, kind of a thing. I just wanted to be able to get in the building over at 30 Rock and kind of see where a lot of the shows are produced, and Saturday Night Live, and, you know. So I'm just this kid in a candy store and walking around and enjoying myself, and we get done with the tour and we leave, and we're, let's go grab a bite to eat. And somehow it comes up. Somebody brings up something, and the guy kind of stops, and he goes, wait a minute, are you Chris Cashman from 1 versus 100? And I go, yeah. And he goes, oh my God, we were huge fans of that. Oh, my fiance's going to freak out. She's not going to believe it. She's got to meet us for dinner. She's not going to believe this. And so sure enough, it's one of those things. We go there, he introduces, he tells her, hey, so this is Chris Cashman from 1 versus 100. What? On Xbox? Oh my God, we always played that. Our friends used to come over. So there I'm seeing, you know, people who are, you know, in a different aspect, but part of the industry, and I'm seduced by where they work, and they were totally seduced by that I worked on 1 versus 100.
World you came from.
Yeah, I mean, you know, who would have thought? I mean, you know, being on a video game on Xbox Live. I just did an event the other night for high school kids where they were kind of getting up and doing poetry and all that stuff, and I hosted it, and that was a part of my bio, and it was really fun to talk to some of these kids who couldn't wrap their brain around, like, so you were, I mean, like, that was you. When I heard you talking out of my Xbox, that was you. Yeah. Oh, man, that's like, how do I get that job? You know, and I knew that when I was doing it. I remember thinking, this is the job that you're always going to look back on, whether it lasts a year or 10 years. This is the one you're always going to get to say to people, or certainly my daughters who are little tiny people, I'm going to get to say, so your dad, believe it or not, I was like the first guy to host a video game live. Like, you know, I mean, it'll be like an Xbox 27 by then. But, you know, I knew when we were doing it, I said, this is a really cool thing that you're going to get to look back on and tell people about.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to leave it. I mean, that was just such a wonderful story.
Yeah.
Oh yes, right. We need your fact
Quick
before
fact
we can let you
for
go,
me,
though.
yes.
Oh, my fact. Oh, my gosh. What's my
Remember the
fact? I've totally forgotten what it was.
Read some
I
of
think
your
it was
tweets.
something related to pomegranate.
Oh,
Pomegranate's delicious.
they are
Which-
delicious. That can be.
I don't know why, but it's one of those things where I got a couple from this local farm, and I thought, we all know them, they're delicious, but I was like, what do you do with it? Because I had the whole thing, and I had to literally look it up and watch a video of a guy teaching you how to cut it open, and basically he was talking about how, do not be careful, put paper down. He said, I didn't know this, but he said, no matter what you're cutting pomegranate on, and once you cut it open, put it in the water. Before you start breaking it apart, put it in the water so that it's not spraying it, because whatever it touches, it will stain. They're like your counters, your skin, your clothes, whatever it gets on, it will stain.
I've seen that.
I didn't know that about pomegranate. Apparently, it's like octopus ink, so we have to be very, very careful about it. So that's not really a fact, but it's sort of a
Pomegranate is very indelible.
Whatever it touches, pomegranate will stain.
And they grow wild in Afghanistan.
I was going to say, that
Also
is
gave us
the
pomegranate
second
fact.
pomegranate fact.
Yes.
Wow.
Is it really?
Yeah.
There we go.
Wow.
That's very
Interesting.
I think if we got a run there, that's kind of perfect.
Well, I will leave you guys with a big thank you for having me. Best luck with what you guys are doing for Child's Play. It's an extraordinary thing, and I don't want to use this opportunity to promote myself.
Oh, please do. Go on.
Like a lot of people might. That's not why I'm here at Chris Cashman on Twitter, or ChrisCashmanOnline.com. But these things usually are a springboard, whatever you have as a platform for promotion. And I just would ask for your guys' vote. I know you guys are in Canada, but I'm going for office, and I just would really appreciate it. I don't even think we have emperors in the United States, but it always starts with somebody.
I think you had one in San Francisco at one point, and
I would vote you for emperor.
Yep.
Thank you guys. Chris Cashman for emperor. I know I can count on your votes, even if they're not legal.
Well, thank you very much for calling in, Chris. I wished I could get to talk to you when you were still on Xbox Live, but I'm just sorry that it had to take a multi-$100,000 charity to get you to call me.
Well, the good thing about things going away like this is it opens the door for a dramatic reunion show. When the phone rings and they finally snap out of it and say, "My God, we made a terrible," some guy in a tweed suit from Xbox, "Well, we made a terrible mistake. Would you consider coming back?" And then I can leave me twisting in the wind a little bit. Say, I don't know, I'm pretty busy. I got some stuff going on in my garage here. Then we come back and we get to do dramatic promos of, "You asked for it. Now it's back." So
we would love to see more 1 versus 100. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Guys.
Thank you so much for calling in. Really appreciate it.
All right, guys. Take care.
Wonderful day.
Bye, Chris.
Yeah.
Yep.